Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, also known as the SHAKY KEY. So this particular video, like many of the ones I do, comes from some of the questions I get asked either in class or sometimes people email me. My email address is in the QRZ if you're American, QRZ if you're Canadian. I get asked all sorts of stuff, and a lot of it is from people who are relearning Morse code. In other words, you are something like me, where in my case, 35 years ago, I took Morse code because I had to pass an exam, to get my license. Maybe you took it back then and didn't pass it. Maybe you did take it, and again, like me, I made 3 contacts and I said, well, the hell with this stuff. I don't like it. Never touched it again. Everything went into that big bin we all have in the basement of, ham radio stuff we don't use anymore. And then, of course, eventually reaches a point, in many cases, it's after you've retired and you've got more time on your hands, and you say, what am I going to do with myself? Why don't I go and redo Morse code? That was something I should have finished and I should have done more of back whenever. So what do? Well, you go into that bin I just mentioned and you pull out the stuff that you used when you were first learning it. Some of you may still have it. Some of it may still be useful. One of the first things you're going to find, though, teaching methods have changed. They've changed a lot. And yes, some of my students still use what they used back in 1990. And as an example, there's what I use, right? That's what we learned on, right? Still used today. Now, MFJ no longer exists, as does many of the radio companies that you may have bought your supplies from years ago. A lot of them have gone as well, but they're also being replaced with a lot of other very good ones. Here's another example. Remember these? These were quite popular back then. This is, on one side, we have character drills, 5 words per minute. On the other side, we have random groups of 5 at 5 words per minute. It worked for us back then. But like I say now, it's different. Do you have an old Morse code key lying around from back then that you never used? No, I was lucky. I actually had this one, which was sitting in my bin. And it turns out when I bought it, I didn't know what I was buying. I just bought it because I needed one. Turned out it's a really good one. No longer produced apparently, but you talk to people who have them. We all love them. So that big bin may come in handy. So you take out your old stuff, you try it a few times, maybe there's a couple of letters and geez, this is easy. Let's relearn Morse code and get back on the air in Morse code. So you have the motivation. Number 1, you've got that motivation. Number 2, the teaching methods. Well, a lot of this now is done online. It's done by Zoom. You could be in a class with 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. It's done by Zoom. So you're going to have to learn how to use Zoom. A lot of it is done by individual programs. There's some wonderful free apps out there that will help you to learn Morse code. There's some free programs on the air, that's on the internet, that you can use as well to learn Morse code. In some ways, that's a good thing. In other ways, it's not, because what happens when you come back into learning Morse code, you're going to end up, sooner or later, you're going to get either bored or you're going to have problems. And instantly, we like to think the problem is not us. The problem is whatever program I'm using. So you can become what I sometimes refer to as a professional student. You try this app for a little while. Yeah, that's not working. I only got so many letters done. So let's go try this other app. Oh, this is a good app. And yeah, I got a few more letters, but it's not really what I want. Oh, here's a website. Let's go to that website and try that out. That's a professional student, someone who just shops around looking for something that makes it easy. Morse code will not be easy. Morse code will be a challenge. It was a challenge the first time you did it. It's going to be a challenge this time. The one thing to keep in mind, though, doesn't matter how old you are. If you stick with it, if you put in what we used to call the sweat equity, you're going to get through it. You will get on the air. All those different apps and all the hype around them and all the different programs out there and the hype around them. Yeah, sure, look at them. Look at the various videos online, see what they have to say and why their teaching method is the only way to go and so on and so forth. And then largely ignore it. Do your homework. What works for you? Because that's one of the things you're going to find out very quickly. We all learn differently. Programs are great, but sometimes they work for a certain type of person better than others. Are you musical? You might find learning Morse code a little better, or a little easier, I should say, than someone who isn't musical, like me. All right, so there will be challenges. It's not going to be a walk in the park. You're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to power through the tough days and so on. The reality of how we all learn differently will strike home when you look around you at what others are doing. In your class, if you're taking a class, you may find some people just zipping ahead. They have no problems. You may be struggling at that particular point. If you're taking it with your spouse may find this really easy. You may be struggling. Some of us do it with sons and daughters. We get them involved, and boy, those kids do it so much better than we do. Don't get frustrated with it, all right? Because you may find it a little bit more difficult, may take you a little bit longer. You're going to get there. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the time working with people. Maybe you have a code buddy. Enjoy time with your code buddy. You are going to get there. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is, when you go back, some letters are going to come so easily. I can look at, let's say the Morse code chart, which right now you should not be memorizing. Right? That was one of the ways we were taught back then. Don't memorize. But I can look at it and I can send, right off the bat, I could send some letters. I knew them. I remembered those particular letters really well. But the fact that I remembered those ones really well didn't mean I would get the rest of them just as quickly. As a matter of fact, after the first, I'm going to say 15 letters, which I thought was a piece of cake, all of a sudden I got into those hard ones. Those are the ones that, boy, I really have to work at. And it became frustrating. Why couldn't I learn now the way I learned those other ones? Must be the program. No. You've got to put the time in. So what do we say when we put the time in? What do we mean? Well, I guess most people, most sites, if you want to do it that, use that expression, they're going to tell you somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes a day. And I found for myself that was about right. If you can do 30 minutes sometime in the morning, maybe another 15 to 30 minutes in the evening or something, break it up a little bit. I found that was pretty good. One of the mistakes I made, because again, that's my personality, was, I'm just going to sit down and do it. And I might do it for an hour, might do it for an hour and a half. Sometimes I know I did it for 2 hours straight. Usually you end up exhausted and you end up getting frustrated because as your brain gets tired, you start to make more and more mistakes and mistakes on letters that you know. So I guess the best advice, if I look around on to what people are saying now, is, maybe do it for 15 minutes, take a break, come back a little bit later, do another 15, take a break, come back, do it again, another 15, and so on, and get your time in that way. Now, I found even with myself, just the other day, I don't know why, I was in the mood to do Morse code practice. Half an hour straight, right through. It just flowed. It was just beautiful. And then I got into another 15 minutes. And oh my goodness, the number of mistakes I made. My brain had just said, that's it. Go take a rest. Took a rest, came back later in the day, did another 15, and geez, it was great again. Give your brain a chance to catch up. Give yourself a chance to rest too, and try and cut down on being frustrated. And again, the other issue, you've got to try and do this every single day. Yes, life gets in the way, right? There are going to be things that come up. There's going to be vacations. There's going to be issues at work or whatever the case might be. Try, though. Try and get some Morse code in every day. On the days when I knew things weren't going to go right, I would try and just get in, do maybe 10 minutes of ICR, just to get my brain, thinking Morse code, flowing with Morse code again. Come back the next day. Because if you skip, if you're one of those people who, I do 3 days in a row, and then suddenly, I'll take a day off. Well, that day becomes 2 or maybe 3, and then you come back at it, and you're expecting to be where you were before. No. You've lost some of that. You've taken a step backwards. So expect that to happen, because yes, life does get in the way. But again, it doesn't mean you can't learn Morse code. You have to pick up, you have to move on. There's also a tendency for us to sort of slack off as you go through. You're keen at the beginning, so you put hours into learning maybe that first half of the alphabet. Then it comes to the second half. And you put the time in, but now, you're getting a little too sure of yourself. So you don't put the time in. You may spend half the amount of time learning that, your numbers, those last few letters, your pro signs, and so on. Because you think you know it, and you're getting anxious now, you want to get on the air, and so on. You cannot overstudy the alphabet and your numbers and the pro signs. Because what will happened to me, because I'm one of those people who did that, is you get on the air and you realize, what are you stumbling over? What are you having trouble copying? Why, it's that second half of the program where you did it, you took it, but you didn't put that extra bit of effort in that you put into the first half. And I actually went back at one point and I redid all that second half, because I knew those were the letters, those were the numbers where I was getting caught when I'm on the air, when I was copying people. So, it's going to get you if you do that. And yes, you'll learn, and maybe you'll go back and restudy it. But again, will it keep you off the air? No, because the whole aim here in learning Morse code is to get on the air. And that's the other thing. Don't drag it out and drag it out and drag it out, trying to be perfect. We spend so much time, we waste so much time practicing Morse code to get perfect. You can fall into that trap of doing groups. You're doing, let's say, 5-letter groups, 3-letter groups, whatever. And you're correcting yourself. So, you go through, you run the program, you get out your pen or pencil and you put the crosses through the letters and numbers that you made a mistake. And then you sit down and you check your percentage. Oh my goodness, I only got 90% right. You know what? That's pretty darn good. So don't fall into that trap that because you're not getting 100%, you're not copying 100% all of the time, that you're not ready to get on the air. Good chance you are. So don't get hung up on that. And that's just one guaranteed way to frustrate yourself. And I've met many, many students who fall into that trap. We always say, when you get around that 70 to 80% correct, move on to the next letter. Don't get hung up on trying to get 100% copy all the time, because in real life, you're not going to. And even when you're sending, because you should be doing sending practice, record yourself. You know what? You're going to make mistakes. You'll make mistakes on the air. So what? No one cares. Get over the fright that if you're on the air and you screw up something and you make a mistake when you're sending a word, that the other person is going to go, oh my God, what an awful operator. Not at all. Because one, they don't know if they copied it wrong, especially with all the noise and interference and out there. They may have missed a dit or a dah, or maybe a few, so they don't know if they copied it down wrong in many cases. And even if they know you made a mistake, they've probably made some too. We've all been there. So especially when you're getting on the air or getting back on the air, if you were on at one point, don't worry about making mistakes. We all do. I mean, the other day, what should I know better than anything else? My call sign. Yep, I sent my call sign wrong, and I recognized it right away. So yes, sure, I corrected it because call signs are something you need to correct. But I laughed at myself. You know, how could I screw up my call sign? For the hundreds, thousands of times that I've sent it, I did. And you just move on, and you complete your contact, and everyone has a good time. Don't overthink it. The idea is to have fun. This is not life and death. This is a hobby. All right, it's not like you're going solo in an airplane and you absolutely have to get that darn plane on the ground and get it right. No, it's a hobby. Have a bit of fun. All right, enjoy it. Laugh at your mistakes. Try and get a code buddy if you can. All right, code buddies are wonderful because the two of you can sit there, especially if you're doing it by Zoom. You know, you can send to each other and you can laugh at your mistakes the same way we used to do it back in the 80s and 90s when we sat in a classroom with 15 to 30 other people, you know, with our oscillators that I showed earlier. And we would send stuff back and forth to each other and we would screw things up and we would all get a good laugh about it. Computers allow us to be isolated. And that isolation means very often we get embarrassed when we make a mistake. Don't let it get to you. And speaking of computers, something very important to remember. Computers send perfect Morse code. Everything's perfect all the time. Easy to copy. Easy to write down what that computer is sending to you. Get off the computer. Find slow speed Morse code. There's other videos here, actually a few of them, which give you an idea as to where to listen for people sending slower speed Morse code. Listen to real Morse code on the air with all the interference, with all the noise, with the up and down band conditions. You have to listen to real Morse code. Get your ear tuned to it. Get your ear used to pulling, the dits and dahs out of all that background noise. That's very, very important to do that. I think equally as important as all the other practice you put in. And it will be rewarding, even if you only know a few letters. Start to hear them, and you'll be able to pull them out. And that's a reward in itself. That's that little piece of satisfaction, a pat on the back that, yes, I'm starting to get this. I'm beginning to understand real live Morse code. So definitely, you've got to listen to real code. So those are just some of my random thoughts. They're not in any precise order, just sort of things that came to mind because I was answering a question to somebody on this exact topic just the other day. So this was on my mind and I just thought maybe do a video and we'll give some of you an idea as to what to expect. I will tell you this though, that once you've done it, and once you've got back on the air, it's a wonderful feeling. A feeling to know that you've achieved something that maybe you couldn't do back when you were younger. It's a good feeling to know there are many others out there just like you, struggling, learning, getting on the air, making mistakes. And like I said, nobody cares. Anyways, I look forward to seeing you there. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, make a comment if you wish. It's fine with me too. Subscribe. We enjoy having you as follow us along on my journey, because when I make these videos, it's almost always something that comes to mind based on my own particular journey, which, as I find out when I talk to people, other people are having the same issues I had. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, otherwise known as the Shaky Key, wishing you 73. Have a wonderful day.